Okay. Yep. So
And
I'm
I'm
recording it. And are you recording this as well?
Oh, I just hit the record button.
Okay.
So if you're seeing this on my channel, hello, you know me. This is Soma. I will give her a moment to introduce herself, and then we're just gonna have a little conversation.
Thanks, Andy. It's great to be here. It's really good to get to talk to you.
Thank you very much for being open to talking to me. It's difficult to get people to be authentic and vulnerable in conversation. And so I'm really looking forward to what you have to share with us.
Yeah, me too. It's quite lovely doing these talks and chats because you get to meet so many people that you wouldn't normally otherwise meet, you know. And the world is actually quite a small place, really, when you think about it. The technology today that we have, where we can sit down in our lounge and connect like this, you know, wherever we are in the world.
And so you're in the UK, correct?
Yes, I'm in Portsmouth in the UK, which is on the south coast, kind of in the middle on the south coast.
I have not traveled there, but I would like to someday. Have you lived there your whole life?
No, no, not at all. No, I was born in Namibia. Spent my summers in Ireland, and then grew up in London, and then travelled when I left home at 16. So I haven't been back to London in quite a few years, in quite a long time, and lived in places, in different places. I lived in Spain and Nepal and Gibraltar and obviously Namibia and Ireland and Scotland, and I've lived in a few places. I love traveling, and I love seeing different places and different cultures, and yeah.
Okay. At some point we'll get into your channeling, and so I'm wondering, at what point during your journey or in your development did you learn that you had some channeling capabilities?
Sorry about that. I just had a cough that came over me. So I put you on mute while I was coughing. What did you say, Andrew? Sorry.
Oh, yeah. So at what point through your journeys did you learn that you had a power to channel or a capability to channel, or how did you develop these skills? And was that what allowed you to travel?
Well, I've always been different. I've never really had a normal anything. I didn't have a normal birth or childhood or any of that. So I always had a lot of spiritual experiences, and I've always I had a connection to the Pleiadians as a child, and then consciously started to channel them in, I think it was around 2010 in Ireland, and it's kind of gone on from there. But I started very early as a child being able to see spirit and talk to spirit, and my guides were always around me. I had a lot of trauma as a child, which flipped a switch for me and released an excess of DMT in the brain, which causes psychic awareness and psychic abilities and mediumship, and it opens the door to the psychic worlds. And so I had that from a very young age. Yeah, but when I've traveled, it's always been on a very tight budget. So I haven't been staying at places like the Hilton or anything. And I wouldn't stay there anyway, but it's always been on the tight budget.
So you've said a lot there, but you mentioned an abnormal birth, and that was like the starting point of your journey. And then you said you experienced a lot of trauma, which created that DMT activation. And you mentioned the Pleiadian channelings. That's something that I'm just now learning about, but in our previous conversations, we talked about how the terms like indigo children and star seeds and shamanic individuals are kind of children or descendants of the Pleiadians. Can you elaborate on that a little bit, or would you like to talk about some of the messages they've sent you so far?
Yeah, sure, Andrew. I can do both. I can start by talking about the indigos and the crystal and the rainbow children. So, and they would all come under the umbrella of a starseed. So starseed would be the main category, and then indigo children, crystal children, rainbow children, also Reiki, shamanic practitioner, healer, psychic, medium, would all come under the umbrella of starseed. And we all have different fortes or different main abilities. So mine, I guess, would be channeling, and some people would be healing, or some people would be the psychic. Some people have it all, which is what I tend to do as well. But because I grew up, you know, very psychic and awake and aware and conscious, and then I had the spirit, and then my guides and Pleiadians and kind of all of it. But I did have a very traumatic childhood, which really caused me to open up psychically and be very awake and aware from a very young age. And so I guess I was always aware that I was different. I didn't realize I was a starseed. I didn't realize I was an indigo child or any of that until much later on. Probably when I started to consciously channel the Pleiadians in 2010. I was living in Ireland, in a beautiful place in Mayo, on the west coast of Ireland, a beautiful place called Lewisburg that's very rural. And I was living in kind of a rundown house, but the area was beautiful. I was on a beach, so I didn't mind too much about the house being run down. I think if it had been in a city, I would have got the hell out of there, but I was on the beach in a beautiful place, so I didn't mind. And you know, I was growing my own food, and growing my own herbs and things. So I was just having a wonderful time. And then I began to channel the Pleiadians as well, along the same time. And there was actually a guy called Joshua Shapiro who emailed me saying that we should work together. And as soon as he did that, I then began to channel the Pleiadians. He opened a door for me, really. Excuse me. And it's kind of gone on from there. And then I began to do shamanic courses once I'd already started to channel the Pleiadians. And during these courses of over 3 or 4 years in Ireland, I began to have memories of having connected to the Pleiadians as a child at the time of abuse. So what would happen is I would leave my body when I was being abused, and I would connect with the Pleiadians, and I was given downloads of information. A lot of that I'd forgotten, the connecting to the Pleiadians, and those memories resurfaced when I was doing the shamanic courses and ayahuasca and vision quests and shamanic journeying and all of the shamanic stuff. So that opened another door for me as well. So I just seem to have had a lot of spiritual doors open to me, but it came about through trauma, which I wouldn't change at all. I really wouldn't change that, because that was the catalyst for me.
That's a very common theme I see amongst those of us who would fall under those categories, is that we have to go through these traumas to learn, which makes me question, are you familiar with the work of Dolores Cannon and her 3 waves of volunteers?
Sorry, go on.
I was just going to ask if you were familiar, and if you identified as a second, first, or third wave of volunteer. I don't know. I feel like I'm a third, but maybe a second. So I was curious if you had insight.
I've heard of Dolores, and I think her work was wonderful. I don't think I've read one book of hers, the Essenes, and I can't remember if I've read any other work, but people have said to me that some of the Pleiadian channeling is very similar to her teachings. So the only book I've read by Dolores is the Scenes, where she is in session with people and regressing them, and they are relaying their experiences where they were one of the Essenes in a past life.
Jesus and the Essenes, I think,
Yes.
is the book. Yes.
Yeah.
In another channeling, she talks about how the StarSeeds, which is where I first learned about StarSeeds, we are coming in 3 waves, the 3 waves of volunteers, they're called, and each wave kind of has its own sort of mission. But one of the common themes among us is we have to go through trauma to activate, as you said, act as a catalyst for our powers. I experienced trauma as well. I think trauma is something that our culture it sweeps under the rug. I think a lot more people are traumatized than are willing to admit. And I'm glad that we're able to have these conversations to help break the stigma and then help other people awaken to their potential powers. So if I have this correctly, StarSeeds are Pleiadians, correct? And then underneath that,
we come from, I mean, I'm not pushed for time, so I can really go into stuff with you and I can get to answer all your questions.
Yes, please.
And it's really great to connect with you, and we can always do this again and again. So, but the StarSeeds are, so within the universe, there is a multitude of different races. So we've got the Pleiadians, we've got Syrians, we've got Arcturians, we've got numerous different beings within the universe. A starseed is someone who's had I call it coming from the outside in, because we come from out there, out somewhere out in the universe, whether it's the Pleiadians or Syrians or Arcturians or whoever, and we come to Earth for this time now. And sometimes we've had a mixture of lives on, as starseeds, we've had a mixture of lifetimes on the Pleiadians and Syrians, and it's, you know, we're galactic travelers in that sense, that we come from a lot of different places. And sometimes we come from all of them, but sometimes, like myself, I really connect with the Pleiadians because I feel that energy. So that must have been, for me, must have been quite a recent lifetime. That's not to say that I didn't have lifetimes on other planets, other star systems as well. But I really feel the Pleiadian connection because it's closer in my vicinity to this lifetime now. I feel that energy because it must have been quite a recent lifetime for me. That's how I understand it. So I think starseeds are not exclusive to Pleiadians or any group of beings, any group of star nations like the Pleiadians or Syrians. We're a mixture of all of them.
And that makes sense now, especially when you said when they're from the outside in. Sorry, my dog. Good boy. Okay. Okay. So you resonate most with the Pleiadian spirit. I
do, but I also have Lyrian connections that I actually didn't realize. I was doing an interview, I can't remember when it was, this year or last year, and it was actually the lady, one of the ladies on the interview actually saw it and told me about it, and I wasn't aware of that really. So yeah, I think we have a lot of connections. Some of them we don't remember, but we can feel it, and sometimes we're not able to verbalize it or sometimes it's lingering in the background in our minds where it's coming to the forefront. So it's a process, I think, of awakening, and we do it in stages as starseeds.
And some technical difficulty. I apologize.
Oh, that's okay.
I missed the first part of that, but I came in when you were talking about the stages of awakening. And so can I ask a bigger picture? Actually, yes, let's segue for a moment. I use the Instagram. It's a social media app. I hate it because, social media. Anyways, I just tried to post something using the hashtag The Great Awakening, and I've learned that they've removed and censored that hashtag entirely because of misinformation concerns and QAnon affiliations. And it's just frustrating and scary, and in a non-spiritual sense, dealing with this world, censorship is happening. And I think the censorship is connected to the spiritual awakening that they're trying to prevent from happening. And so a lot of people are just now seeing this, and they have previously maybe not been spiritual, but maybe not an atheist. And so I don't know what to tell them, but because I'm also, hold on. Crap. I'm sorry.
He wants his toy.
He does.
He's beautiful.
Come on, hop up. I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. You were saying about normal people and how to approach the subjects.
Okay, so first of all, is the Great Awakening actually something that's connected, or is there a term that the Pleiadians use, or do you have a term that you're using? Because there's something going on, and a lot of people are wondering what. That's the question. I'm sorry. Thank you.
No, that's okay, Andrew. That's quite a big question. Yeah, a big question, but there's a lot of aspects going on at the moment, and basically it's at the highest level, or one of the higher levels, it's to do with the war between light and dark, which is a spiritual war which is very real, and both forces are fighting for their lives. And the negative agenda is in the rattlesnake phase, where it's the head's already been chopped off, and now we're just hearing the rattlesnake. It's like the death breath, the person is gone, really. They're gone, and it's just the death breath. If anyone's ever been with anyone that's passing away, that they have this kind of death rapture, that sounds they make, which is it's sad and horrendous to hear it, but it's when you hear that, that they're leaving, that they're going. And so that's what's happening on Earth at the moment. But so there was a contract that was written up. I'm just going to close my eyes for a second. So there was a contract. So let me go back to the beginning. At the time of Atlantis, the downfall of Atlantis, a large meteor or a large object hit the Earth on purpose and caused the Earth to shift off its natural axis. And excuse my accent, a lot of Americans say that I'm saying axis, but it's axis, which kind of sounds the same when I'm saying it. But it caused the Earth to shift off its natural axis, causing great catastrophic events and land masses to move. Around the same time, at the downfall of Atlantis, negative ET energy came in and overthrew Atlantis. And this would have taken a number of years. And they claimed ownership of the Earth and ownership of humanity, and we became slaves to them, to negative ET energy. There was a contract that was signed that they were allowed to do this. And now, and our DNA was dumbed down, our DNA was changed, was manipulated, and that caused our connection to Pleiadian beings and other Star Nation beings to be severed. So we lost our galactic communication, which we all had. And now this is a reversal of Atlantis. So the Earth is going through changes and changing back to her original axis, her original blueprint. So that so there will be catastrophic events, but that's not to put fear into people. That's just simply to relay information, take the fear out of it, because those catastrophic events have already been happening for a number of years. We can see that in weather. We can see that in tsunamis. We can see that in events that have been happening on Earth with land and weather and things like that. So the Earth is shifting back onto her natural axis. Our DNA is naturally raising. So if you imagine a coil where it's been stretched to its limit and then you let go of it, that represents our DNA. So our DNA is going back to its original blueprint, its original state, natural state of being, of 13 strands of DNA, not 12. And actually, we're not even going back to a time of Atlantis. We're going beyond and above and to a higher state of being than we were in Atlantis. And we were in Atlantis. And now the Great Awakening, because the contract has ended, the negative agenda contract has ended on Earth. It's ended. Their time period of ruling the Earth and ruling us as slaves has either completely ended or is coming to an end. So this is the Great Awakening. There's been many prophecies that have been written about this, one of them being the rainbow prophecy, where this time on Earth was prophesied. It's also, because there's many aspects going on here, it's not just one thing. It's not just the Great Awakening. We've also got the aspect of the 26,000 years where with the whole universal time period and stars are realigning. So we are evolving into a new human, into a new illumined being, into a crystalline being where our bodies are changing, our hair is changing, our minds, our brains, our teeth, our skin, our DNA, our very DNA is changing. We are evolving. We are in the state of evolution, and it is affecting us on a very physical level. Our abilities are becoming more than they were. We are developing within our lifetimes, in our lifetimes, we are being upgraded, and our abilities are becoming more at whatever level we are. So if we are a normal person or asleep and unawake to and unconscious to anything, we're going to start to wake up. And if we are up here somewhere on the spectrum where we are fully awake, aware and conscious and doing lots of healing work and things like that, and psychic and mediumship and healing work and whatever we're doing, even channeling the Pleiadians, we're going to be upgraded as well at the same time. So it doesn't matter what level we are, we're all going through this process of awakening, and this cannot be stopped. The Great Awakening cannot be stopped. And actually the negative agenda do manipulate and use words. They kind of hijack words. So the Great Reset was originally a positive thing, and they've hijacked it. I'll just pause there, Andrew.
Oh, I have a million follow-up questions, and I don't know which one to go with first. The Atlanteans, a gentleman I met years ago gave me a book, John Johnston. It was essentially him writing about the different past lives he could remember. And in Atlantis, he wrote about how there was a mass hysteria that had overwhelmed a majority of the population before the crash, and then the water level rising and everything. And
Wow.
I get worried because I look around today and I see a mass hysteria around the Great Reset agenda and the transhumanist movement, which makes me wonder if is that effort to make humans machines, is that an effort to prevent the spiritual upgrade, or is that the eventual path of humans? Are we to become machines like the Greys? Are we eventually just the gray aliens? So do we resist this movement or do we embrace it, I guess is my question.
Well, there is so much going on here. There's many different aspects. One of the things that the Pleiadians showed me in, I think it was January last year, is, and this is really very similar to, well, I think it's the same or very similar to some of the teachings that Dolores was teaching. And for years I'd been hearing that there will be two Earths, and I could never get my head around that because I work very visually and I see a lot in images. And when I get downloads, sometimes it's an image that contains, I don't know, 1,000 pieces of information within that image. But the Pleiadians in around January last year, they showed me that there was two beams of light hitting the Earth, or energy hitting the Earth, that would intensify and increase to the point it would cause the Earth to twist and multiply into two Earths. And one would go into a higher frequency energy dimension, and the other would stay where it is, or it would drop into an even lower frequency energy dimension awareness. So I think that's how we will end up with two Earths. And I think that one will be positive and one will be negative. I see a positive outcome, and the negative agenda are very obviously trying to turn us into AI and into machines and robots. I don't see that timeline. I think that will happen on perhaps this lower Earth, or lower frequency, lower awareness that I've been shown. I think that's where it happens. I don't think it happens on our dimension, because I do see a positive outcome. And you mentioned something with Atlantis there, where there was something I was going to say and I've forgotten what it was to do with Atlantis. But this is
mass hysteria.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Andrew. So with the mass hysteria, what's happening is humanity as a whole has been traumatized. And we were saying earlier that it's through the trauma that when you come through the other side, that you really are a much more, I don't want to use the word enlightened being, but you have a higher perspective. You have a higher understanding of the trauma once you come through it. And so we're really having trauma en masse. Humanity is having trauma en masse, and they're needing to go through that stage, that process, that phase to awaken. So it's very cathartic what's occurring on Earth at the moment, but it's through trauma that we wake up, or the masses wake up. It's through acknowledging that some of the horrific things that have been and are still going on Earth at the moment, like all the child trafficking and the human trafficking and the bloods, adrene, I won't continue that. I won't say the whole word, but adrene and things like that, where people are not wanting to turn and face that because it's too horrendous for them to see, to witness, to know that that's the world they're living in. And so they're going to have to face that in their own time. You can't force anyone to wake up. And I've learned that through my own experience, where when I began teaching all this stuff, I was not understanding how people could not see what I was seeing, because it was there. It's very physical to me. I can see it. And I'm sure you can as well. But I couldn't get my head around how people could not see it. And then I came to, I had another experience or an awareness where I was shown that that we're like different, we're like a radio station where you have different frequencies. And if you're at this end of the spectrum, you cannot see or feel or experience what is at the opposite end of the spectrum, because you're over here. It's only through trauma that you can creep up to this end of the spectrum. There are other ways. It doesn't have to be through trauma, but for a lot of people, it is through trauma, where they are blown wide awake through trauma, because that comes down to chemicals and DMT, which is a very physical chemical reaction in the brain. It's not woo-woo stuff.
Not at all. I can't remember the author that wrote about it, but one of my good friends and I have this conversation around humans need an ordeal poison to go through in order to achieve higher levels of awareness and enlightenment. So they need to go through a very difficult experience. And throughout history, just surviving created that experience, the struggle to just survive. And just within the last few generations, we've no longer needed to truly struggle to survive. It's a different kind of struggle. In a materialistic world, it's a different kind of struggle. And so a lot of people, if they do not have a traumatic experience, and then they also don't have a lot of struggle, are just blind. And I hate that I use this reference, but those are like the sheep, I would say, the people that just are never going to see what's going on because they've never been exposed to struggle, and they've never been exposed to trauma. And so thank you. Let me see. I had more questions.
But you could also say that is their karma, and they are like children, I guess, for want of a better description, but they are like children where they don't know any better, because they're not able to understand something. It's like talking a foreign language. They're just not able to understand it, not unless they're at that frequency of the radio station, then they can understand it. But also, one of the other things as well is things like ayahuasca and DMT and other sacred medicine can help to wake people up when you do it with a sacred thing, as a sacred medicine.
I have for years wanted to do ayahuasca, and it's a goal of mine. There is, I'll just be honest, and because I shameless plug, it's more of like I like to give people credit who have been doing work. So I don't know these people, but the YouTube channel Spirit Science is a really cool YouTube channel, I think. They do animations around spiritual topics, and it's very easy to digest content. They are affiliated with some clinic in Costa Rica called like Rhythmia or something, but they do a very structured shamanic ceremony around ayahuasca, and it's like a goal of mine. I want to do it so bad because I've done other work. I've done a lot of work, but I know I need to do more. And I feel like it will unlock my next level. Unfortunately, that next level, part of what I need to work on is the manifesting, the faith, the belief. And I think my generation, that's something we all struggle with, particularly around knowing our value, our worth, and going out into the world and earning it. Because I do believe in the equal exchange of energy. I need to earn my worth. I need to provide value in this world, but I'm tired of destroying my body to make money. And a lot of my generation, and I'm going to go to a little gross place. I apologize for your audience, but if you've heard of this OnlyFans thing, it's essentially virtual sex work that a lot of women have been kind of forced into just to pay the bills. It's a way where they can sell their bodies online without actually having to interact. And I know women that have done it that didn't want to do it. And that's another form of selling your body. And we don't have to, as a culture, we don't have to as a species. We're past that point. If we could come together and collaborate and get rid of the negative energy beings that are running our world. And so let me see if I can circle it all back to one of the biggest things we need to learn is how to set boundaries, how to know our worth, and how to go out into the world and obtain it. And I hope as more and more people wake up and raise their consciousness, we can construct businesses and business models that benefit everyone. Is there
Yes.
a Pleiadian? I'm sorry, go on. Yeah.
No, go on.
Oh, I'm just
Okay.
that's something I think about a lot, and it's not a great direct question, but a lot of you said healers. I have a lot of healer friends. For your audience, I'm sorry. I have worked as a massage therapist before the plague. I can no longer do it because I live in a state where it's required to work as a healthcare worker. I have to receive the vaccine. I'm not an anti-vaxxer, but I'm an anti-government mandated vaccine. So I can no longer practice my healing profession. And a lot of my healer friends are just broken physically, mentally, financially, and it's all related to this spiritual war, this exploitation of humanity. And in building the new earth, and really bring some healing to the world, because that's what the world needs. I had a question and then I just started rambling. I'm sorry.
That's okay, darling. So are you able to move state? Can you move into a different state? I've heard of Montana recently where they don't have any mandates.
So I've driven through Montana twice, and it is the most beautiful place I've ever driven through. I am trying to build a plan around going to that ayahuasca retreat, and I feel like my next step in life will be revealed to me after that. I don't know what my life has in store for me, but through all of this chaos, and you mentioned that I can see things, and I at first was surprised that other people couldn't. And that's been a very difficult struggle for me, compartmentalizing the fact that there is such obvious evil right in front of our faces and people can't see it. I'm just now sort of coming out of that depression, and I'm hoping the ayahuasca can help. But the crazier the world gets, the more I'm just trying to give my efforts to the universe in this mission. But money makes that complicated. And so it all comes back to having the faith and belief in the universe, yes. I still haven't asked a question.
No, that's okay. I feel where you're going with that, and it's really it's a process that is seems to be very, very common to other light workers and other starseeds, where we go through this process of trying to wake people up and then coming to a realization that we're not here to do that. We're here to, when they're ready to wake up, then we're here to help them when they're ready. But we can't. My mum always used to say, you can take a horse to the water, but you can't make it drink. And I always think of kind of that situation when I think of what she used to say, because we can't make anyone wake up. And I used to try for when I first started to teach the spiritual, and I got to a point where I just had to relax within myself, and I became aware that I couldn't wake anyone up. All I could do was share what I know, was to share my information. And it really took my pressure off myself. It kind of, I unplugged from trying to force a round bowl into a square hole. I stopped trying to force people to wake up, because I came to the realization I couldn't do that I was just here to simply share my information to people that were already awake and already listening and already on a similar vibe, on a similar frequency. And today I found a website called pandemic of love, which I think you might find helpful, but it's I think pandemicoflove.com or pandemic of love something, and it's, I think it was Stella something, or maybe it was Sheila or Shelley, but it's pandemic of love. And but yeah, I'm going to look into that spirit science YouTube channel. But we can't force anyone to wake up. And also with the money, I mean, it's very common what you're saying, Andrew, because a lot of starseeds go through the same thing or a very similar thing where they're wanting to wake people up, and rightly so, and then come to this right realization. And also with the money as well, and with the trauma, a lot of us have had very similar or parallel experiences where we've struggled with money, we've struggled with trauma, we've struggled with standing in our own shoes and being in the world and seeing it for what it is, and having this energy that is going against us because we are going against the grain, and yet that is why we're here. So we need to find peace within all of those things within ourselves. And a lot of it for me seems to be stepping into the heart center and just being in the present moment and knowing that everything is perfect. There is divine timing, and things are happening, things are changing on a global level, on a with things are changing on a mass, humanity as a whole, and also individually as well. Things are really changing for us on a very individual level. So trust that money will come, trust that you will be in the right place at the right time. A lot of it is to do with trust and faith.
Thank you very much for sharing all of that. I've written a lot down to help, and you, faith is something that I mentioned and that you reiterated and affirmed within me. And what you just mentioned about how humanity as a whole, as well as individuals, are undergoing an upgrade. I've been trying to read the work of Carl Jung, who I think is of great influence to light workers, because he really brought the language to the surface of shadow work, which is going through your trauma and processing it. And I resonate deeply with like he and I were friends in a past life. I feel like, as crazy as that, nothing sounds crazy, I'm sorry, but
That's not crazy
so
at all. Because
no,
because the starseeds came in collectively. So we have known each other before collectively. I mean, I'm talking about the starseeds. So we have known each other before. So that doesn't sound crazy at all.
that's oh no, my internet, come back, internet, you can do it. Okay. It's interesting because I met someone a few weeks ago. I worked for a month at a very crappy job, and I am gone from there now, but I literally was meant to go to that job to meet this person, because after I met this person, we had like 2 conversations, and he's like, it's good to see you again, old friend. And he had some like tears coming down his eyes, and I'm starting to get emotional. Because in that moment, like, we acknowledged that we knew each other from the past, and it was just like really beautiful. And so the more I am having faith, the more life is falling into place. But I'm struggling in that I never saw Christianity or Islam or any of the traditional religions as real, because I saw them more as a bit of history book and some philosophy and sociology. They're valid texts in that they offer civilization some knowledge, but they shouldn't be guiding tools, I believe. And so during my 20s, I rebelled fiercely against that in almost if you're familiar with Sam Harris like fashion of atheist, almost an angry atheist. And it wasn't until I began my spiritual journey that I came back to spirituality and faith. And so I think a lot of people are at that place.
I think so too.
And so you sharing this message I'm very grateful for it. Me personally, and then I hope other people hear it. And because we do individually, I've said, if you watch some of my other videos, I'm drawn to the shamanic spirit. I feel like I can live in the spiritual world and the real world, or the Maya, I guess, the illusion world. And so I talk a lot about politics. I talk a lot about culture. I talk a lot about the things that impact our day to day, but I try to bring spirituality into the conversation. I try to blend them. And so in honoring that, I'm looking around at the mass hysteria that people are going through. I'm looking at propaganda, and the idea of agency comes to mind. I worry that a lot of people do not have agency of mind. And so we must have compassion for people, but at the same time, I don't have a question. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Have you thought of starting? Sorry, Andrew, go on.
No, go ahead, please. You're doing great. You're doing great. Please just keep going.
Okay. I was thinking, have you thought of doing a spiritual group, even if it's online or in your local area? Perhaps a meditation, or even just a get together, some type of spiritual group where you are holding space for people, even if it's a coffee morning or a coffee day, or just for like-minded people. Because a lot of the time as starseeds, we don't feel like, part of one of the common characteristics of being a starseed is feeling like we don't fit in and we don't belong, and that we're not from here, and a longing to want to go home, and also not knowing where that is. And that's because we're not from here. We don't fit in, and we're never going to fit in to normal society. We just don't fit in. We are the black sheep. And actually, that's another label or words that have been hijacked by the negative agenda, because we're not the black sheep at all. It's the other way around. And we do stand out, and we don't blend in, and all of those things. So I think it's a process that a lot of starseeds go through, where they wake up a little bit at a time as they get older, and go through life and have experiences and become more aware of themselves, and get a greater understanding of themselves. And I'm including myself into all of this message, because I'm not different from anyone at all. I'm a starseed, yes, but I'm like every other starseed on Earth. So, it's a process where, and I'm still learning and growing and developing, and I have abilities that I didn't have a couple of years ago, which I'm sure most starseeds, would say the same thing, with telepathy, or in different ways, whether it's healing or shamanism or psychic stuff or dreams or whatever it is. Sometimes just even awareness, where they're more aware than they used to be. So, and that's also to do with the ascension and evolution, because we are in an evolutionary process. And it's a lot to do with trust and coming away from the normal bullshit, the normal BS of, having a 9-to-5 job and working and paying bills, and, marriage and kids and job and bills. And then that's just a forever cycle that is at the end of your life, you'll die most of the time a very unhappy man. I'm sure people, or woman, I'm sure there are some people who fit into those frequencies, but I'm certainly not one of them. And I want no part of it. I'm not here for that. I'm here to show people a different way of, and part of that message I've been getting over the last, for a number of years, but very intensely over the last 2 years since COVID kicked off, is that we need to come away from the cities and move into smaller local communities, spiritual communities. It doesn't have to be a spiritual community, but a small local community where we grow our own foods, where we are self-reliant, where we have our own water supply, where we grow our own herbs and medicinal plants, and get back to Mother Nature, more of a shamanic path, really. I really do resonate very much with the shamanic stuff and totally love it. And we've lost the days of our grannies where my granny used to make butter, and she used to make cheese, and she used to milk the cow, and she had chickens and cows and a goat, and they were poor farmers in Ireland, so she had all of that stuff. And we've lost that way intentionally. They've taken us out of the away from the land intentionally, and made, in recent times, made us slaves to the cities. And we need to go back now to our granny's time, where we had our own milk, we had our own eggs, we had our own chickens, we had our own butter, we baked our own bread, and children were raised, especially in the indigenous cultures, where the children were raised by the community, and that's where we're heading, and that's what we need to go back to, is coming away from the matrix, coming away from the BS, coming away from working 9 to 5 and paying our bills, and because that will lead to ill health and depression, and that's not a good space, that's not a good energy to be in. So yeah, just follow our hearts and move into small local communities, or create them.
Okay. Wow. You said a lot, and I tried to write some notes to track, because everything you're touching on is what I'm seeing. And so let me try and start. To answer your first question, I just recently was invited to a group of people that get together and do herbalist type medicine, and they do health through nutrition. And so that is the community I've been seeking. And in trusting the plan, it's all coming together. So thank you. You're just telling me I'm on the right path. You're suggesting all these things that are falling into place. The community, that's a big thing that we need to bring back, and the living more in alignment with Mother Nature. And the homesteading is like the trend, the term, but it's cool. And that's like what we should bring back, is people like having a few acres between the three of them, and they share some infrastructure, but also have their own privacy. So it's community, but also privacy, which is something that I value personally.
Yeah, me too. I like my own space. It's important.
But yeah. Exactly. But then being able to walk out into a courtyard with a fire pit and other people is I cherish that as well.
Yeah.
And I see the obstacle ahead of us at the Great Reset. And I see, I'm in the Seattle, Washington area, where there is a large social justice warrior presence. And I consider myself someone who is social justice oriented. However, I clearly see that this movement is being manipulated for a darker agenda. The Great Reset is an attempt for the elites to bring in communism, to maintain their power structure, to maintain their slavery of humanity. It's very clear to me. And so I've struggled in just how other people don't see it. But then I think of the propaganda and I see how powerful it is and how real this spiritual war is. I thank you for your efforts in fighting it, because we do need to fight the matrix. The war is not yet over. We're in the middle of it, but we will win. The capitalism versus communism debate not even being had properly. So in my shamanic spirit, I see the spiritual side of it, but in the real world side of it, that's what it is. It is the capitalism versus communism debate. But I believe it is being intentionally fueled to prevent us from realizing there's actually a third option. There's not a name for it yet. We're going to build the name as we build the new earth, but there is a third option. It's not capitalism versus communism. We need to stop fighting each other on that. We need to understand that there is value in humanity, that you don't have to work a 9-to-5 job, but you have to contribute value. And that is, when you look at it in a different lens of, instead of serving the matrix, but serving your community, I see something like a retired grandma. My grandmas were always my favorite family members. And I see them going on the street and just picking up trash. And that's value. They care about the cleanliness of their neighborhood. It gives them something to do. There's just far too many old people that are just bored and wasting their best years of their life. I'm sorry for using the term old people, but we need to just stop thinking of value as supporting the machine, supporting the matrix. I would like to have a family someday, but in this current construct, I don't, and this is gonna sound sexist, but I would like to have a stay-at-home wife. I think it is, woman wants to support me, I'll be a stay-at-home dad. If a woman has the resources, but I think the resources is key. Children need so much nurturing, so much nourishment. They're like these empty, just giant basins needing to be filled. And the mainstream education system, the collective traumatizing we've been doing, I don't want to bring a child into that world unless I can take care of it properly. But the communists or the dark energy entities, they want all the babies that they can get because that's just free or cheap labor.
Yeah.
I'm rambling. I'm sorry. But this is what I see. I see the spiritual side and the real world side of it. And if we could move the conversation of capitalism versus communism to a higher level, to a different frequency of how can we take care of our communities while retaining our agency and sovereignty, that's the battle. That's the battle. I don't know about your viewership or your audience, but I would love to have anybody who wants to have that conversation with me on, or if you have an opinion on that, I would love to hear it, because
Yeah, well,
thank you.
if our audience listening has any comments or questions or suggestions or anything to say at all, then please leave it in the comments. I'll put this onto YouTube, and so anyone, the audience can leave questions and comments and suggestions and just ideas, and just come and share your voice. And also, I just want to add another thing as well, is that we need to stop waiting for other people to do stuff for us. This is really about us walking away from the matrix, walking away from cities and saying, I'm done. And I'm including myself in this. Because I'm still living in a city at the moment, quite a small city, but it's still a city. So we need to come away from the big cities and take back our power. The governments, and even especially the supermarkets, are really controlling us. They're controlling our food, and our water supplies are being controlled. What's in the water is very controlled and full of toxins and chemicals and all kinds of God knows what stuff is in there. Possibly also nanotechnology, because that is one way to get it to in a negative agenda, to get it into the to the masses is through water and chemtrails and through the soil, through spraying the soil and GMOs. And so we are inundated with toxins and chemicals and fluoride and chemtrails, chemicals, and all kinds of things. So it's not even about fighting against the system anymore. It's simply putting down our luggage or our weapons and turning and walking away from it and walking into communities or creating communities if there isn't one near us. And we need to stop relying on someone else to do that for us, including setting up spiritual groups or spiritual communities or communities where we are growing our own food and having our own clean water. It's all to do with vibration. And I can take all this information for myself as well, Andrew, but we need to raise our frequency, raise our energy, raise our vibration, where we are creating the earth, the new earth that we want to see. And we are creating communities, you and us. We are it. We need to stop waiting for someone to come and save us, including the Pleiadians or Syrians, because they are assisting us and we do have help, but they can't do it for us. This is an evolutionary state of being, a phase that we're going through on a mass scale, that they can't do it for us, because otherwise we won't evolve. We need to learn, but it's like a child learning by falling down. Eventually they'll learn not to do that, whatever it is. And that's where we're at with humanity. We are learning not to do that thing that because to put our hand on the cooker because it's going to burn us. So we need to take back our power and take back our sovereignty and simply walk away from it and start creating. We are immense beings of love, of light, of frequency, of sound. We have no idea our true capabilities that are immense. We have immense abilities where we are put into a school system that knocks one of the first things they teach us in school is that we have we're limited to 5 senses. That's one of the very first things they teach children. And that's simply not true. Even our science and the hidden science that's kept from us teaches us that we have an electromagnetic body or an aura, it's called in the psychic worlds. So there is so much that's hidden from us. You know, we have been played on a mass scale about our science, about our history, about Mother Earth, about the stars, about the universe, about our own bodies, about our own capability to heal ourselves, about numerous things. I mean, there's a whole list of things there where we've been lied to on a mass scale, not to mention our science and our history and the fact that giants did exist on Earth. And we're not alone in the universe, and UFOs, and, you know, the list is endless of the things we've been lied to. I think you've frozen. Are you still there?
As soon as you said that giants walked the earth, we lost connection for a minute. And I was like, my brain, I don't know how much time you have left, but I think, are you referencing the Anunnaki or what, when you say the giants, that has me curious now.
Well,
but also time. I don't know how much time. I don't know what time it is, but
I'm okay for time.
Okay.
I don't know if you are.
No, it's early morning Sunday for me, so I have time. So you said giants were on the earth and then we lost connection, and I'm curious about the giants, but also if you wanted to finish your thought, you can do that as well. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm not sure what I said after that, but we've been lied to on a mass scale about us, not just about everything else I mentioned, but also our science and our history, and giants walked the earth, and because they did. There were many animals that were also created at the dawning of humanity, at the dawning of I won't say creation, but at the dawning of humanity on Earth, where animals were created that have been recorded onto ancient cave drawings. Those animals were real. I'm talking about the ones where you had a half man and a half horse or something similar. And there were also bull type creatures that were created where and animals and things like that, where not all the not everything worked. Not all of the beings or the animals that were created worked, like the giants and some of the other animals and things that were created. But we've been played on such a mass scale. It's unbelievable, really, you know. And giants were, I've heard, I mean, I've been shown that giants did exist on the Earth, and I believe they were linked to the Anunnaki or part of the Anunnaki.
That was my question. I met another gentleman who introduced me to the Anunnaki. A lot of these questions that I meet people like yourself, and you just have this wonderful information, and I'm so thankful you're sharing it. For some reason, I believe the Anunnaki were real, and I'm just inclined to believe that they're real. I don't know, people are going to call me crazy for it, but I do.
But they were real. We've been lied to on a mass scale about so much, and that it is unbelievable for most people.
The Bible, for example, the Bible we read today is nowhere near the Bible that was initially written, first of all. So when you talk about the Matrix, what people don't understand about the reality of the Matrix is that as time progresses, the authenticity of the original item is lost because it gets replicated. So that's what the Matrix is. So over time, the authenticity of the Bible has been lost as a result of consistent replication, translation, all of that. So there's still some core truths in it, but manipulation to control what the masses do. From what I understand, the Anunnaki are the biblical Nephilim. Is that correct? Or I'm not sure. That's what I understand them to be. Okay.
I'm not sure.
That's what I've seen, and it's frustrating because people want to judge me for not being a Christian, but it's like, I'm just a spiritual person and I want the real truth. I want disclosure to happen. And so the Anunnaki were fallen angels, or are they another branch of a StarSeed? So this gets into spirit and the universe as a whole.
You could say they were fallen angels, and you could also say that the angels were. Are they? I mean, are angels or are they ET? Because angels, when you see them in depictions throughout art and history, they come from above with wings. So, what is that that's coming from above with wings? Is it an angel or is it an ET, whether it's positive or negative ET energy? It's coming from above and it's coming down to Earth and it's flying here because it's in mid-air. So to me, angels are have often been mistaken as being angels when actually they're positive ET or perhaps negative ET energy. But the Bible has definitely been manipulated and things taken out and things added and things readjusted and realigned and misinformation, some truths in it, but a lot of misinformation as well.
And so when talking about ETs and starseeds, you also mentioned you have a visual brain. I also have a visual brain. So I try to conceptualize the universe as a whole, which you can't do, but it's fun to try. However, in that attempt to conceptualize, where do ETs or starseeds lie in the hierarchy? I guess this gets down to the creation of the universe. Do the Pleiadians have a story for the creation of the universe?
They do. So what I've been shown is that, let me first say that I've been shown by the Pleiadians that they created us in their own likeness, and that they created Egypt and the pyramids using sound, using energy, using vibration. And so that's what they've shown me about Egypt and our own beginnings. And what was the other question to do with, oh, the universe? Okay, so one of the things I've been shown about the universe is that there was nothing. And then that nothingness became aware of itself. It became conscious, and it turned and looked at itself. And around the same time, frequency, sound, mostly sound and frequency and vibration was born. And as it expanded, it became louder and louder and louder. And as it expanded, it kept looking at itself, like a ball of like small like stardust turning to look at itself. And sound was born. And that sound intensified and increased and intensified and increased until the Big Bang occurred, because there was a huge vacuum of energy that became so intense within itself that it had to explode or implode upon itself in order to, it couldn't contain its own energy within its body. It couldn't contain its own energy within its body. So it exploded or imploded. And then the universe was born. And at some stage, I've also been shown at some stage the way that the energy works, or consciousness works, because that energy of what I was just describing, you could call that God, or you could call that consciousness, whatever you want to call it. It is conscious of itself. And I've also been shown at some stage that energy became finer and finer and finer, and for want of a better description, smaller, where it became more individualized. And then spirit was born, individual spirit was born. I'm probably missing out a few stages there, but at some stage, spirit was born that would have then become what we would call beings of light, or perhaps Elohim, Elohim, E-L-O-H-I-M, Elohim, or Elohim. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but so it kind of, I mean, we're looking at it in a very kind of, what's the word? We like to label things and then put things into different levels and also dimensions. But so on a human, trying to explain it in a human way, so for a human understanding, that energy would have created light beings that then would have in turn created beings like star nations, which are positive ET energy. And then they would have created us in their own likeness. That is some of my understanding that I've been shown.
it is an extraordinarily complex thing to think about. But I see what you're saying, and thank you. I think about this a lot, and it's frustrating because it's not something that this form of me will fully ever be able to understand, and I know it, but I still think about it. I guess, well, I assume that I assume reincarnation is a thing. There's a branch of physics that I like. It's not physics, cosmology. So it's like concentric cyclical cosmology, which essentially says the universe is just going through a whole bunch of iterations of the same process. So that Big Bang, that expansion, and it collapses back into nothing, and then it blows up again. And so when I think about that, I'm like, okay, yeah, there are past lives, and I could have lived a past life in a whole nother universe, but they say that the data is lost, but it's not lost. There's a reason that they say like the physicists and cosmologists are the most arrogant type of people ever, because this is literally the most complex stuff you can think about. I love it, but it's so hard. I believe in reincarnation, but I also believe in science. Science. That's you can't use that word anymore. Science doesn't mean anything anymore. Like, it's so unfortunate because science and spirituality can coexist, but science, there's no such thing as science anymore.
Yeah, it's a shame the way science has gone, and big pharma, and every system on Earth is run by negative ET energy, and is owned by negative ET energy. So they've bought everything off. They've bought the food, they've bought the medicines, they've bought just everything. But one of the things I wanted to say there was that creation that I was showing, explaining just now, of what I've been shown, how the universe was created. I've also been shown that is a cycle, that when it gets to the end of its life cycle, it will implode or explode. And then a new universe is created again and again and again and again and again. It's never ending. It's never ending.
The infinite nature of it, which I feel in my spirit or my heart or my soul, actually, this question that I had, that's the case for our universe. And so on the topic of the soul, but then also negative ET energy, this is going to be a direct, blatant, weird question. Is someone like Bill Gates, does he have a negative soul, a negative ET soul? Do souls exist? Is he a negative entity? These evil institutions that you mentioned, the people that inhabit them, are they inherently evil, or have they been corrupted?
I think, I really want to get into this, but can I just take a quick bathroom break?
Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah. Maybe I'll tell a joke. I don't know what to do. If you're watching this on Soma's channel, I don't have the full infrastructure, so I apologize for the side distractions and whatnot. But we're getting there. I have faith in the universe. Thank you very much for watching. If I had time, I would smoke some pot. I do consume cannabis. I know it's bad for you, spiritually speaking. Well, there's debate. Maybe we can talk about it, someone.
Sorry about that, Andrew. I'm back. Sorry about
No
that.
worries at all. I think, yeah, no, I think we've gone for a while, so no worries. Okay.
So you were asking about Bill Gates and his soul, what his who he is and his soul mission and his agenda. I think people like Bill Gates are part of the negative agenda, negative ET agenda. And I think people like him, I can't say specifically him because my computer will blow up, but for people similar to Bill Gates, I do believe that they're fully aware of who they are, why they're here, what their agenda is. And money is also part of that because they are given funds to make sure that they foresee play out their negative agenda. You know, there's 1% of the population that has the most money on earth, and that is designed, that is set up by the negative ET energy that's ruling the earth, that has been for so long, that's coming to an end now. So that's by design. It's by design that we are poor, because they don't want us, because money brings freedom. It also brings power. Money is a great thing. Money is not something that money's been hijacked by the negative agenda for their own agendas, and it's also been given a lot of negative energy. But they've hijacked it, really. So with Bill Gates, I do believe that he's very much aware of his, yeah, I would say his negative ET energy, or was originally. I don't know if he's probably, I would say he's probably AI now, and or a clone, I should say. And I'll probably get booted off YouTube for this, but yeah, he's a high player, and I had this dream. I don't like calling it dream, because I had this out-of-body experience or dream state where last year I was taken to Mars. I was shown Mars, and I didn't know it was Mars at the time, but you know, I did after, when I woke up a couple of days later, I realized that it was Mars. But I was taken up in the lift by a lady, and I was shown, she told me to look over there in the distance, and it was kind of to off center to my right, so it was kind of over there. And I was shown that they were building like crazy, absolutely, almost in a state of panic, to build now, build. And there were bulldozers, and there was large machinery, and they were frantically building, trying to get these buildings up to house people. I don't know if they were offices. I don't know if it was accommodation. I don't know what it was, but it was for a large amount of people. So I believe that there are a large amount of people that are either there now or planning to be there. And I think that people like Bill Gates and Elon Musk and that kind of echelon is yeah, they're fully awake. I don't want to say awake and aware, but they're fully aware of their own negative mission and purpose and why they're here. I think they are also ruled by people above them, or negative ETs above them, but I think they are, you know, you could call them evil. You could call them evil.
So the soul is real, or is that a part of the human universal experience? Is that, and so that enables them to upload a soul into a clone so they can continue? Is that maybe what's going on? Or are these clones then not actually the original person, but just tools of the negative ET rulers, or should we maybe not talk about this?
I'm not sure the ins and outs of it, but I have seen people in the media and people that are very well known that I've just known it's a clone. Don't ask me how I know. I just know. I just know that there's certain people, stars and people that are very much in the public eye that are clones. And I don't know the ins and outs of it. I don't know how the mechanics work of it, or the mechanics work of it. But I do know that our technology is vastly ahead of what is released to the public. So behind the scenes, the negative agenda, we're not shown, we're not told that the huge, vast leaps that they've made with technology, if they're able to build on places like the moon and clone people and do all kinds of things that are being done, let's face it, then what else are they not showing us? If we're aware of those kinds of things going on, what else are they not showing us that we're not aware of yet?
That is a good question. And I think in connection with the Great Awakening, the word is disclosure. There's a lot of us in the conscious community who are awaiting mass disclosure.
But disclosure is not going to happen. Because we are waiting for disclosure from governments, and the governments are the negative ET energy. So they're not going to disclose anything to us. We need to, you and I, on a very individual level, need to stop, and I'm including myself in this, we need to stop waiting for other people to do anything for us. Because for far too long, we've been given away our power. Many of us have seen craft, or have had experiences with Pleiadians, or are channeling, or are healing, or are doing things that we are told, taught, and conditioned and dumbed down to believe that do not exist. And yet we're seeing them, we're experiencing them. We're witnessing UFOs, we're having telepathic experiences, we're having great Kundalini awakenings, we're having healing abilities given to us, or developing or expanding or advancing with our own upgrades. Nothing is what we've been shown or taught to believe or conditioned to believe. And that's very much part of the school system. That's why the school system was set up. Get them young, and you've got them.
You're entirely correct. And I was going to mention that earlier when you had said that we need to take charge in connection to disclosure, you're entirely correct. The governments that have been screwing us for thousands of years, the negative ETs aren't all of a sudden just going to say, oh, you caught us. Here's what we've been doing. No, they're not going to do that. But I can understand, because I got caught up in the sort of wave of inspiration that can come with it. You're saying that we need to take charge is something that I've been struggling with on a personal level, in that going through this awakening, there's a deep depression that comes with it. And I've not
been there as
wanted
well.
to take, I just don't want to take charge of my life. It's not like an active desire to end my life, but also not an active desire to be a participant within my life. And so I'm trying to come out of that. And a lot of people, I think, are trying to come out of that, where it's like taking back our sovereignty. I feel this weight of oppression that I need to just shed and take back my sovereignty. And that comes with risks. And if you are someone who is on this path, I think about the potential for, you have to accept what might come. And in the word virtue and integrity, the words virtue and integrity come to mind, where this spiritual war is going to have casualties. you know, my ego is still attached to wanting some things in life. It's that balance of living within the materialistic world but committing to the spiritual fight. But if we are to retain our sovereignty and agency, this life is a gift. The kingdom of heaven is here on earth. That message from Jesus, like the real Jesus, it really resonates with me. There is so much beauty on this planet. There is so much beauty within love, but the negative ET energies have been through propaganda and mainstream media, through state mandates and control. They've been squashing the love and light in our culture. And YouTube censorship and censorship in general isn't helping, but we have to keep fighting this fight. I need to be better about ending with questions. I'm sorry.
No, you're perfect, Andrew, just the way you are. And you were saying something just now where I've come through that very recently of not wanting to take responsibility for some of my own aspects in my own life, and not wanting to. It's not that I didn't want to move forward. It's that I felt like I couldn't move forward or didn't want to move forward, or it's like a heaviness. And I think that is actually a program or a frequency where the negative agenda is using that frequency or negative technology in a way to control and manipulate and dumb us down, keep us in our boxes, keep us not stepping into our own power, keep us dumbed down, keep us to stop from taking our own responsibility. I think that is it's either a program or it's a negative technology that they're using to target us with that feeling or that emotion or whatever it is. It's because it's tangible. It's tangible. And I think that also leads into us taking back our divine sovereignty and stepping into our own shoes and stepping into our own power. And when you're ready to do it, you'll do it. And for me, it's a process. For me, it's a process. And I think for most people, it's a process where you each day you step closer to your goal or your aspiration or your dream or whatever it is, but each day you step closer to your goal. But that, in my understanding, that is absolutely a negative technology frequency that they are using. And they also absolutely do have voice to skull technology, which is probably a similar thing, because it's in the sense that it's negative or technology, advanced technology that's been used for negative purposes.
And is that where they implant thoughts into your head without, yes. So they're not foreign thoughts? Interesting. I'm very thankful, knock on wood, that I don't think I struggle with that. But I know of some people who might. Man, that's scary. That's very scary. Makes me think of that movie Inception, if you've seen it. But that's what, yeah.
I've seen that, yeah.
Spiritual warfare.
There's a good film you should watch called, I think it's 1984. Have you seen it?
Well, is it the Orwell movie or?
Yes.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So I haven't seen the movie, but I've read the book, 1984 by George Orwell. That's what we're living through right now. And it's scary. I think the fear of like going to prison, for example, is something that keeps people in line. One great example, I'm just randomly, while you were on a break, I was talking and I had mentioned I smoked pot. I consume cannabis, which might be a spiritual inhibitor, I understand, but it's still illegal in a lot of places in America, and there's still people who are in jail for it. And it's like really, really, really depressing. But that's a way to keep people from using opioid alternatives, to keep the pharmaceutical industries making money. And it's those little things that keep people just in line, and people aren't standing up, and people haven't stood up over decades, and that's what's created this mess. But people need to stand up now. Just control. We were talking about control.
Yeah, it's time now for humanity as a whole to wake up and to smell the coffee, and to realize that we've been played on a mass scale. And you're starting to see that more and more and more, because it is escalating. We are evolving. And this is part of the ascension. It's part of evolution, is ascension. We are evolving. We are waking up from a deep sleep, a deep trance, where they have manipulated, controlled, dumbed us down, changed our DNA on numerous occasions to dumb us down. There's been numerous different cycles or stages or phases of humanity. So, but they cannot stop evolution, which is what they're desperately trying to do. Desperately trying to do. And we're seeing that on a very, very physical level with things like masks and mandates and other nonsense. But it's just nonsense. You know, it's a death rattle of them desperately trying to hold on to ownership of the earth and ownership of us. And they cannot stop the evolution. They also cannot resonate or feel the energy frequency of love. Love is a game changer, because love is a frequency that can be measured. And I've said a few times, if love is a frequency that can be measured on other different interviews, then you can create it. Anything that can be measured can be created. So, and we can do that through music, through sound, through color, through healing, through art, through being in nature, through smoking pot or ayahuasca, or it's an individual thing sometimes, where if something makes us happy or elates us, or for me, it's very much being in nature and also music as well. Or DMT. I love DMT. I
have not yet tried, but I want to.
Well, it's, for me, I very much liked it. I do. It's a sacred herb, and I do it in a sacred way.
I think that's essential to really maximize the experience. Unfortunately, it's easy to label people who use these drugs in negative ways, because that's how the media portrays them, because they don't want people to wake up. They don't want people to wake up. I'll send you a link and whatnot. I just yesterday watched a really brilliant podcast with the gentleman named Lex Friedman, and he had a professor at Columbia College. I cannot remember the gentleman's name, but I'll put it in the show notes. But this professor openly admits to using all kinds of drugs like heroin and cocaine and MDMA, and he researches it as well. And we need to break the stigma, because I do believe ayahuasca and other plant medicines can be essential for helping with this spiritual awakening process.
And that is why they are portrayed in a negative way. Sorry to jump in there, Andrew.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say, one big thing for my own personal awakening experience that I grapple with every day, that I know I'm going to continue to grapple with, is the ego, which is what prevents love. The ego is the biggest barrier to love. And our hyper materialistic matrix culture is centered around people feeding that ego and building that ego. And my ego, this question that I have, or this kind of, is rooted in my own ego. But the death rattle, I wonder am I going to live to see the new earth, or is my whole life going to be dedicated to fighting for it? And that's my ego just wanting to relax a little bit. But I guess I will see it in a next life. So I just need to accept that the work I do now will benefit me, if not now, in the future. But do you have any estimate on a timeline for when we might begin to see the new earth? And I know it all comes back to us just walking into it. We're going to build it. So as soon as we accept, it starts.
I think we need to stop fighting anything and just simply put down our luggage and walk away from wanting to fight against the negative agenda, which is a very natural instinct to do. It's to fight against the enemy. Yeah, I guess that is a natural instinct, but to fight against the enemy. So we just simply need to step away from it, take a different path, a different route, one where we create our own communities, where we step into a love frequency, where we are untouchable, where we are evolving and in the process of ascension and the great awakening. And I do see it happening in our lifetime. I really do. A couple of years ago, I was doing an interview with Ted Ma, and I can't remember what year it was. I think it was 2018 I was doing it. But they came through in this interview, the Pleiadians, and they said to me that the next 10 years, 20 years, and 30 years is extremely important. And I think that was in 2018. I didn't realize at the time, because I wasn't aware of how things would play out. So that would be 20, if I'm correct in my dates, that would be 2028 and 2038, 2048. But in my lifetime, in our lifetime, we are going to see immense changes occur on Earth. Immense, the contract has ended for the negative agenda. It's done, it's ended, or it is ending. It's in the final stages, or it has already ended. So we are taking back our power. We are taking back ownership of the earth. We are taking back ownership of our land. We are taking back ownership of our own divinity, of our own sovereignty. And it's all tied in. It's all connected. Everything is connected. Everything is connected in a very physical way on Earth at the moment, not to mention the dimensions and the timelines and things like that. We just simply need to walk away from the negative agenda and the negative plays that are playing out on Earth at the moment, and go and build our own communities. Go and start growing potatoes again, and vegetables, and coming away from the big supermarkets and the big pharma and all of that stuff. The governments do not have our best interests at heart. They never have. And that's not going to change anytime soon. But I do see changes in our lifetime. And with dates, I really need to check the dates that I did that interview, when the information came through, because that's important to know. Well, I guess it's not even important to know, but it's going to be in our lifetime where we are seeing huge strides forward, because as you roll a ball down the hill, it will increase its velocity. And that's what's happening with humanity at the moment. We are increasing forward on a drastically increasing motion of evolution and ascension, which is essentially the same thing. There is not much difference between the ascension and evolution in the way that I see it. So that there will be huge strides in humanity. The earth is not, when it does come time for me to, or for us to pass away, which will be a long time yet, the earth is going to look very different to how it was when we entered, or when we were born, or the earth that we grew up in. And it already is different, but it's going to be different in a much more positive way. there are going to be many more communities of spiritual people living together, growing their own food, having their own water, not being reliant on water companies or big supermarkets or big pharma or banks or building societies or any of that. What is the word? I can't think of the word, sorry. Civilized society is not civilized at all. It is barbaric when you look at it. So we're coming away from cities and all of that stuff that has been sold to us, that is the way to be, and going back to nature and herbs and sacred Mother Earth is a living being. And I'm probably running out of time now, Andrew, running out of steam, but it's been wonderful to talk to you.
It really has. Thank you very much. For anybody on my channel, would you like to just talk about your website real quick? And I'll put the website in the description, but I'll give you a minute to talk about it.
Thank you, Andrew. And we can always, I mean, I'd love to do this again with you. I love your energy.
I have a lot more questions.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Same to you.
Thank you. And so my website is thepleiadianchild.com, and I do readings, I do psychic readings, I do mediumship, I also do Pleiadian channelings, and I also do channeling through direct voice channeling during individual readings. So if you'd like a reading, send me an email. My email address is on my website, which is thepleiadianchild.com, and my email is actually thepleiadianchild@hotmail.com. And I'm also on Facebook. If you Facebook Soma ARah, SOMAARAH, and also I have a couple of groups there on Facebook. One is the Great Awakening of Humanity 2020. Another one is the Cosmic Ascension, Waves of Light. And yeah.
Thank you very much. I'll put in the YouTube description box links so people can contact you. And I do have a lot more questions, so hopefully, we can do this again. Just thank you very much, Soma. I'm gonna just end the recording, but I am not going to end or I'm gonna try to end the recording. Oh no. Okay. Well, I don't. Oh, there we go. Okay.
And I'll stop recording.